This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a drama, mystery, and sci-fi film called Project Almanac. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. David Raskin, a bright high school senior, is shooting a video application that he hopes will get him a scholarship for M.I.T. His sister, Christina, is behind the camera to film everything. His best friends, Quinn Goldberg and Adam Lee, also appear in the video to support him. David presents the impressive motion sensor technology he developed that uses his mobile phone connected to a computer to track his movements. However, someone calls his phone during the presentation, and the machine crashes. Undeterred, David is confident about his application. Sometime later, David receives a letter from M.I.T. He announces his acceptance to the prestigious university with his friends and family by his side to congratulate him. Their celebration is cut short when David finds out that he's only receiving a partial scholarship. The implication that they can't afford the huge sum needed for his enrollment kills their celebration. At school, David's teacher advises him to apply for other scholarships. Meanwhile, David's friends try their best to cheer him up. After school, David finds out that his mother is selling their house to enroll him at M.I.T. Christina finds David in the attic looking for an old research proposal. David explains that they won't have to sell the house if he gets a scholarship to another school. By chance, Christina finds a video camera belonging to their late father, Ben. They discover that its last footage was of David's 7th birthday party. While David watches the video on his laptop, he's shocked when he spots a reflection of his current self during the party. He lets Quinn, Adam, and Christina review the footage with him. After going through more rational explanations, David shows him that he's wearing the same shirt in the video. The next day, Christina finds David and his friends investigating the video in the cafeteria. Christina points out that David is holding a ballerina keychain in the video. While presenting their keychains, David realizes that he accidentally switched bags with his crush, Jesse Pierce. David returns the bag to Jesse, but he leaves an awkward impression. After school, the group attempts to recreate the video to find more clues. They notice that David is reaching for the basement light switch in the clip, so they head to the basement. There, they enter a locked workspace that belonged to Ben. As they go through Ben's things, they notice a clicking sound when they turn off the lights. They trace the clicks to a secret compartment on the floor where they discover a heavy-duty case containing machine parts, schematics, and documents. After some investigation, they presume that Ben may have taken part in a time travel experiment called Project Almanac, commissioned by the Classified Military Division, DARPA. Adam and Quinn are enthusiastic about building the machine, but David is apprehensive. David later watches a clip from his 7th birthday, where he says goodbye to his dad for the last time. This moment gives David the motivation he needs to join the project. After gathering supplies at the hardware store, David and his friends return to the basement to build the time machine using Ben's schematics. After working on the glass circuit that serves as the heart of the machine, they turn it on and are shocked to see Christina's hair stand on end. They trace it back to the machine's electromagnetic energy. Its power is enough to shake the basement, have a light bulb glow in their palm, and fuse metal tools together. The machine blows up unexpectedly, but David is so astounded by what happened that he directs Christina to film everything. Later, David helps Adam figure out that they can attach the machine's sophisticated but outdated outputs to an old TV. It works, and they access the machine's program through the monitor. When they find themselves in need of a graphics processor, they tear apart Quinn's Xbox. With that, they access the machine's navigational program to control the time machine. At the cafeteria, Adam shows his friends the program he's developed so they can set the time on the time machine with his cell phone. While they continue working in the basement, David figures out its limitations. They can only go back as far as 3 weeks, and 3 weeks forward. If they go back further than that, they'll be trapped in the past forever. After that, the boys finally finish their initial build and turn on the machine. They're amazed by its powerful electromagnetic energy and unnatural effect on inanimate objects. The machine explodes shortly after and splashes liquid on David's shirt. They realize that it's the same stained shirt that David was wearing in the video. They take it as a sign that they're close to their goal. The only thing they need now is an ample supply of hydrogen. The group sneaks into their school at night and steals bottles of hydrogen from the supply room. They go back to building the machine with the stolen hydrogen, but Quinn suggests they take a break to attend the party outside. They ignore him and proceed to set up their first experiment with a toy car. When their trials fail, they figure out that they need a more robust power source. With that, David goes out and lets Jessie park her car on their lawn. As soon as she leaves, they quickly attach wires to the car battery and continue with the experiment. Just as the machine starts up, Jessie unexpectedly arrives and is shocked by what she sees. All of a sudden, all the power in the neighborhood goes out. After searching in the dark, they find the toy car fused to the basement wall. Not only that, it had gone 2 hours back in time. David eventually discloses their project to Jesse. While David and his friends brainstorm how to test on live subjects, Jesse comes over and urges them to use the machine on themselves. Just then, David sees Jesse's ballerina keychain. After viewing the video, Jesse is sure they'll be able to time travel. She convinces David to let them use the machine. That night, the 5 of them go to a remote part of town where they'll test the machine to send them 24 hours in the past. David warns them that they might explode in the process, so he gives them safety guidelines. After settling their nerves, they turn on the machine. The energy it generates causes a sizable explosion that sends them reeling from the impact. Soon after they recover, they go back to town to check if they were successful. They sneak into Quinn's room, where they're amazed to find Quinn's past self asleep in bed. While Quinn draws a smiley on his neck, past Quinn rolls over and sees the group. A feedback loop occurs that almost takes both Quinns out of the timeline. The group runs out to the streets, ecstatic that they have successfully time traveled. Suddenly, a dog starts chasing after them. They panic and travel back to the present, inadvertently bringing the dog with them. They see the missing posters for the dog during their drive back. Later that night, David and Jesse spend a few moments in the car to bond over what happened. The next day, the group discusses what they want to do with the machine. David enforces that they should always use the time machine together and that no one can travel alone. They also agree to film every time that they time travel in case they need to review something they did. With that, they proceed to use the time machine to do whatever they want. Quinn passes his exam, Christina gets her revenge against a bully, and they all win the lottery. David uses the money to prevent his mom from selling their house. Quinn splurges on an expensive sports car, and Christina gets herself new clothes. As they enjoy their new wealth, David continues to work on the time machine. He later confides to Jesse that he's developing the machine to go back further in time so that he can prevent his dad's fatal car crash on his 7th birthday. At school, David meets with his friends under the bleachers to give them a surprise. David transports them back to Lollapalooza, where they have the best day of their lives. David and Jesse share a sweet moment along the "Before I Die" graffiti wall. As he musters the courage to confess to Jesse, he hesitates, and she leaves him heartbroken. After returning from the event, they notice odd changes in the present timeline. David's mom already has a job. Quinn becomes famous on social media. Christina's bully acts like her best friend, and David and Jesse's interactions become awkward. That night, David pinpoints where it went wrong and travels back alone to Lollapalooza. He manages to confess his feelings for Jesse, and they kiss. David later returns to the present, where he's pleased to see Jesse in his room after they've slept together. The following day, David finds out that his mother still has to go to her job interviews, even though his mom already had landed a job before his solo jump. At school, David gets even more confused because all of the changes in the timeline. David later finds Quinn and Adam reading about a recent plane crash, among other calamities. Adam thinks that their trip to Lollapalooza may have created a ripple effect that caused these incidents. To prove his point, Adam explains that if their star basketball player had not been hit by a car on the night of the blackout, he wouldn't have had a leg injury, and their team could have gone to the playoffs. The pilot of the doomed airplane happens to have a son in the team. Had he attended the playoffs on the day of the plane crash, dozens of people could have been saved. Everyone is unanimous about fixing what they did, but David urges against their theory. Despite David's resistance, the group agrees to erase Lollapalooza from their timeline. As the group starts to arrive at David's house that evening, David sneaks out and heads to a remote part of the town. Unexpectedly, Adam arrives shortly after. David lies to Adam that he got their plans mixed up. He frantically tries to convince Adam that they can fix everything by preventing the star player from getting injured. He then admits that he traveled alone because he didn't want to lose Jesse. Adam urges David to come clean to everyone about what he did, but he refuses and impulsively travels back in time alone. David returns to the night of the blackout and saves the player from the car crash. When he jumps back to the present timeline, David finds Adam unconscious in the hospital after being hit by a car. Frustrated, David heads to the basement where he tries to find a way to prevent Adam's accident. He figures out that he needs to travel back to Tuesday at 7 p.m., the night he sneaked out of the house to time travel alone. Jesse unexpectedly arrives and catches him as he's about to travel back. David inadvertently takes Jesse with him. She confronts him about jumping alone and asks what events he changed. He eventually confesses that he went back to Lollapalooza so that they could end up together. Jesse feels betrayed because of how much he's manipulated the timeline, but she assures him that she always liked him too. Just as they're mending their issues, past Jesse sees them both. Suddenly, a time loop is created. and Jesse disappears. David panics and rushes back to the present to fix things, but he's run out of hydrogen to operate the machine. He's alarmed when Quinn arrives frantically to tell him that Jesse has disappeared. David explains to Quinn that he has to destroy the time machine to prevent every incident that ever happened. Quinn desperately tries to convince David not to do it because it's given them something they want. Just then, an officer bangs on the front door, demanding to see David. Since he's now a suspect in Jesse's disappearance, David sneaks out of the house and runs for his life as the police hunt him down. That night, David sees cops swarming his high school building. He takes the risk and trespasses into the school. David scrambles across the halls and breaks through the doors to steal a bottle of hydrogen from the supply room. Just as the police arrive to capture him, David manages to travel back in time. He wakes up and finds himself in 2004. He goes straight to his house and walks in on his 7th birthday, just like in the video. He makes his way to the basement, where he finds Ben. Putting away the military case in its secret compartment, Ben recognizes David, and they have a brief but heartwarming talk. David tells his father that he will be okay, and Ben tells David that he's proud of him. They say their final goodbyes and hug. After his dad leaves, David takes the military case and sets it on fire. The timeline is erased, and David forgets everything. In the new timeline, the siblings find 2 video cameras in the attic, the one that their father owned, and the one that David left behind in the previous timeline. After viewing the footage, David approaches Jessie on the day they accidentally switch bags. He then confidently declares to her that they're going to change the world.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.